Today we're going to talk about long-term storage slash winterizing, whether it freezes or not, your pressure washer, and I'm going to show you a couple tips that I've never seen anybody else show on YouTube or anywhere else that'll make the life of your pressure washer tenfold. So cold weather is here for me, and this sits out in the shed, so it does freeze, but even if it doesn't freeze, I need to protect my investment and make sure it starts up next spring when I need it again. But even if I let it sit just for a couple months, I want to make sure that I'm not damaging the pump with the corrosive just hose water. So I'm going to show you these steps. So the first step is as simple as just running some sort of antifreeze through the pump. I really like, you can use RV antifreeze, but I actually really like car antifreeze. I think it's way better because it has more corrosion resistance than just the RV antifreeze that's like water safe for drinking water places. So this is just some old antifreeze. I drained out of something the other day. It's clean. So I just take this. This is just a piece of clear vinyl tubing and it has like a hose repair. One of those things you just repair your garden hose with and crimp it on. You could use a short piece of hose. I think the clear hose helps. So all I'm going to do is as simple as hook up the garden hose thing, pour some fluid in here, and let it run through. First step, super easy, but you're not going to want to miss the next step that is, I think, super critical. So pretty self-explanatory. Just have it hooked up, antifreeze in the hose, and I'm just going to hold up the hose. It's much easier to do on the ground, but you can see it's actually kind of already starting to flow through. And I'm just going to pull the starter rope. I'm not going to start the engine. I'm just going to pull it over a couple times and see if we can cycle that through. And another thing you can do is actually pressurize this, just a teeny bit of pressure. I mean, this is used to the hose pressurizing this with, 60, 70, 80 psi. So you can do that with your air compressor. You can do it with your mouth. Just don't get antifreeze in your mouth. I'm going to do it with the air compressor just a little bit, and what it's going to do is probably shoot out of the discharge. But I also want to cycle all my pistons. Yeah, so we're just toe runs through, pull the rope a dozen times, make sure it cycles through all your pistons. Now everything in here has a little bit of residue of antifreeze, so if there is a teeny bit of water in there, it'll protect it from freezing. So that's the industry standard method. Just run it through, pull a couple times, you're done. But you're not done. The number one failure that I see with pressure washers, besides freezing and breaking, is a failed unloader valve. And almost on every single pressure washer, there's a nut on the bottom. The thing is when you do this, when you just pull it over when it's not running and it's not pressurized, the unloader valve stayed shut and it never actually opened up and cycled fluid through the unloader valve. So we still have like fresh water in there that can freeze and corrode and do a bunch of damage. So I always take the nut out of the bottom and let that drain. And I'll show you some stuff that happens. Here's one. Here's a pump. I call this like a lawnmower one because it uses a lawnmower engine, a vertical shaft lawnmower engine. And this froze and broke. You can see right there. Snapped it. But then the unloader valve right here, because it held fresh water, that's one of the lowest points on here, is the unloader valve. If this was taken out, nothing would have ever happened. It would have drained out the water. He would have been fine. But even look at this. You can see the corrosion just happening on this, just from hose water sitting in there for winter or summer, whenever. So this is actually where the pump builds pressure, and I don't know if you guys can see in there really that well, but you can see all the corrosion from just water just sitting in there for a winter. So here we have a horizontal shaft one, and you can see the unloader valve is the lowest spot right here. So this is your hose inlet. This is where your wand would come out, but you have this, even if you cycled through your pistons antifreeze, you're going to have water sitting right down in here, sitting right on your unloader valve. Inside here, there's a spring. It's just going to rust it, corrode it, crack it, break this. So this is going to stick, and next summer, even if you get your pressure washer to start, it's not going to build pressure because this is stuck open or whatnot. So it's easy enough on this one. I'm just going to take this nut out real fast. So this one right here, this design, higher end pumps will kind of mitigate this. Most of these other pumps I showed you were bargain basement pumps, and we do have some antifreeze in there, but I'm able to look at that because my unloader valve sits on top, where most of them on so many pressure washers sit down below. So we're good. Got antifreeze in there. Pump is done. Now, what about the engine? So you can put fuel stabilizer, everything else in there, but there's one true method, and that is no fuel, no problems. If you run it 100% out of fuel, you're not going to have any issues. And so virtually all the engines made in the last 10 years since Honda's patent ran out are Honda clones, no matter who makes them. And virtually all of them have adopted this fuel shutoff, which is amazing. And so every time when I'm done, I just shut off the gas and I keep using the pressure washer until the carburetor is dry. Once the carburetor is dry, no issues. And if not, virtually all engines, all small engines, people don't know this, have a bowl drain on the carburetor. What should come out of here for me? Nothing. There might be a spit. No, nothing, because I ran out of fuel last time I used it. And if there's not a bowl drain, usually there's a nut on the very bottom that you can just crack and let fuel drain out of that. Don't remove the whole thing, and it'll just drain it out and be done. I do still have some fuel in my tank. It is ethanol free, and I don't worry about that. That'll be just fine next season. It's amazing. No fuel in the carburetor, no problems. Trust me. And that's it. Don't worry about pulling the spark plug, putting oil down in there. That's overrated. What you want to do is just make sure the cylinder's closed, and that is pull it over right there. I got compression. Both valves are closed. Cylinder's completely locked up, sealed up for the winter. We're done. So this is RV Marine Antifreeze, and a lot of people say it's okay to use this. I say no. It'll protect the pump from freezing, but it has no corrosion fighting ability, where regular car antifreeze does. And it doesn't matter. I've used green. I've used the orange stuff for GM, the Dex Cooler, whatever. I only use 100% as well, not a 50-50 blend, because I expect it to mix with some water in the pump. So this has corrosion resistance. This will keep all the aluminum parts from, galvanic corrosion. It'll keep the brass clean. This stuff is what you want to use. I have used this in a pinch, but this is the stuff. What about the hose? I always remove it. I have a quick release here. This is the other style that has a little O-ring. You can see just the corrosion around there. But I remove this. Usually I spray it down with WD-40. You can blow it out with the compressor, with your mouth, or generally the hoses, if a little bit of water is left in them, being rubber, they can handle it. They can flex. There's enough space for the water to go. Don't worry too much about those, but it is good. If you have a pump, a bottom mount pump like this that goes underneath, generally it'll have this stupid pretty tray around it. I usually take these off, whether it's customers or not, and I throw this away. This is garbage because you can't see your pump. And then you can access your entire pump, the unloader valve, and everything else. As far as my wand, what do I do with my wand? I just make sure there's no water in it. I usually store it on its rack with this depressed, just so anything can flow out. You can spray down your tip and stuff with WD-40. Just keeps, if you have a removable tip, some people don't. You have the little adjuster things. There's a million different types of tips. But I just make sure, I actually always leave it open. So any water that's built up in there can just flow out. I've seen these crack because just enough water is kind of left in there. People, they think it's left open, but there's just enough water in there that just sits right there and just freezes, cracks the mechanism. You go to use it the next time, this is cracked, or the joints down here are cracked, or it cracks and splits over here. So I just leave it open. I store it with the handle depressed, just like this. And so anything in there will just completely dry out. Hopefully there's some useful information there. If you want to watch the video of me assembling this big bad boy pressure washer from just random parts laying around, put a link right here. But thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Bye. Hey, Ginger. Want to go exploring? Yeah? Let's go do it. Let's put your leash on. We exploring a mine? That seems dangerous. A railroad track.